in Pets on the Train when his plan goes off the rails as Badger takes over, taking all the pets with them and figuring out how to take on the situation and get them to safety. Hello and welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema. Let me know now and come slow what you thought of Pets on a Train. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're waiting for this review to decide if you're going to see it or not, and taking it right in a positive, The Pets on a Train is a delightful, fun family film for kids and adults alike that really vibrants in the way that you're falling about all these charismatic characters, distinct personalities, following Falcon, who has this distinct sort of roguish type of idea behind him, and there's different pets that you meet along the train, along the way, and caring about how that situation all comes about to be. You get this raccoon that's trying to do his best intentions, stealing in order to feed the pets that are going about throughout the city, but all of these pets on the train don't know him. They're suspicious of different activities. There's a police dog that also tries to go about what this situation is all about, when the raccoon has previously is planned to work with this badger that will get him all that food. But when things go underway, when all the people go off the train and the train is being controlled by the badger, there creates an interesting situation which develops all these dynamics of the situations about along the way, which is a delightful adventure, having nods and thematic ideas that never go too strong, too heavy-ended in some dramatic suspense, but there is some delightful things, parallels that I could idealize to Mission Impossible with a big jump, certain ideas with the way they're trying to stop the train, and just different ways they're trying to hurdle over different things, lighten up the train load, do these things in order to prevent a crash that feels inevitable for the situation they're having at hand. And for most of the movie, you're going without seeing the badger, seeing who the villain is all about, but the way we're falling about with the dangers and how all the stakes are inevitable and constantly coming about, there's a constantly changing environment with all the animation that's free flowing. It goes pretty smoothly. There's a nice way of looking at the visuals that's not necessarily spectacular for animation, but it still has a consistent element to it that is easy to the eyes to watch. Being able to follow Raccoon and all these other different animals with these different personalities, that creates a distinct motive for the free flow of the plot that even me as an adult who still likes animation to the element that it goes well, there is a nice distinct flavor to what it's falling about, and it has a homage of parallels to Over the Hedge is the closest that I got to it, with all these villains that are human, as well as the badger, which represents the bigger animal of the situation. And this raccoon is the suspicious one of the bunch among one character that goes about, has to redeem himself, has to show he is the good guy, all about going throughout trying to get this food just as well, which just creates an interesting element falling about. Which takes me into the mix element. There's nothing that I would write home discreetly just rant on this film for what it's doing, because of course this is mostly just for the kids and younger audience, being of this animation that has a relatively juvenile sense to it, but at the same time, there is an ounce of comedy that works along the way. There's nothing too original, too distinct that shines through, that unfortunately will make it feel pretty plain to some people. But at the same time, there is a distinct style that will stand out, and the combination of all these different unoriginal ideas will come together to make it still a distinctly fun adventure. So it's just sort of a mixed bag falling about the way, where it's nothing that I would write home about being so flavorful and fresh, having all these twists and turns, but the adventure is still there. So there's just something that will for adults that aren't necessarily looking for something very clever, very crafty with what it's doing with its innovative style of writing. It's pretty simple and to the point, never something that doesn't feel flat by its own thematic realm, but it still doesn't have a whole lot to speak upon, doesn't really discreetly hide in all these specific messages, and there's some villains that pop up later on with the humans that don't necessarily have a specific motive that we're understanding from the get-go, because you're sort of understanding the generalities of all these motivations of all that the Badger want, but all these different things pop up at random times throughout the film that I wouldn't nitpick to a strong degree and would say it's a horrible thing to this film, because ultimately it still lends itself well to kids, and all of the afterthought, all of the nitty gritty details are something that I can kind of look over, but they are still present. They still bother me ever so slightly because they do stand out. And there's some inconsistencies with the platform that is working on with some glass of the train that breaks upon impact easily, and ultimately that just creates an element where you suspend your disbelief, which is fair to what this film has to offer, and it's consistent with that motive for the most part. But there's just those little nitty gritty details that I could highlight that ultimately brings my score down, even if this isn't necessarily a horrible film from the get go. So that's just my personal thoughts on Pets on a Train, which I have to rate a simply 6.5 out of 10. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought of Pets on a Train. Was it good? Was it bad? Or somewhere right in the middle? Or if you're waiting for this review to decide if you're going to see it now or not, make sure to like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe if you haven't already to join in film culture community where we talk about the love of cinema as a whole. So that's just all, and make sure to do yourself a favor and go watch a movie.